Hey everybody, Jake here from Bearded Gear, and this is one of those rare cases where I've actually started shooting this video twice, stopped because I went off on tangents I didn't mean to go on, and I'm going to, I think, have what I want to say come out this time. Hopefully. It's going great, as you can see. Anyway, this is a video that I've been meaning to tackle for a while. It's a conversation that's been happening in the knife community for a while now, at least a couple of months. From what I can perceive, it really started to become kind of a hot button topic in our community about the time that the coronavirus craziness began. And I've just kind of been somewhat standing back, perceiving it mostly for a while. I've made a few comments here and there on the subject, but I've tried to not overly push my opinion on anybody because A, I'm not the moral arbiter on this subject or any subject, and I struggle to pick a side on this one because I see merits on both. But what I want to talk about is USA made knives versus foreign manufactured knives. And a lot of the time lately, that conversation has been very focused on US versus Chinese. But I think it's a conversation, it's best if we boil it down to just US versus other, because there are manufacturers in China, a lot of the big ones that are making a lot of the knives that a lot of Americans buy right now, but there are also manufacturers in Italy and Australia. There's a couple of places that are also making knives, right? So the reason why I want to make this video finally, why I've decided I'm going to do it, is because I've gotten a number of comments, nothing personal or anything like that, or nothing offensive, but people have just asked me kind of where I stand on the subject, because a lot of people are taking hardcore stances that from now on, I'm only going to buy USA made stuff. And other people are saying that's nonsense. You're typing that on an iPhone and you're wearing Nikes made by little Chinese kids and yada, yada, yada. And I see both ends of the spectrum, and I fall kind of in the middle. So I want to express that so that people understand where I come from, so that the viewers of my channel understand as of right now, June 2020, this could change down the line. I'm someone who's always open to having my opinion changed if it comes to that. But as of right now, where I stand on it, I think can be somewhat valuable information to those of you who watch and who see the knives that I buy, that I do unboxings of, that I'm reviewing, and how I choose those things, and who I'm willing to support, who I won't support if there are any cases of that. And I just kind of want to have a conversation about it. And so I don't necessarily have a firm direction where this is going to end up, but I just want to kind of air out my thoughts on the subject. And if it's at all interesting to you, then great. I'll try to hold knives for part of this conversation, so there's at least something other than my face in front of the camera. But let's talk about USA made knives versus knives made elsewhere. So first of all, I think an important thing to say is that I think a lot of people, this is probably going to be the most controversial part, I'm going to start with it. A lot of people who are saying that they will only buy USA made knives products, or USA made products, period, moving forward. They may not like this. I think a lot of the people who I'm referring to right now, saying this about, are going to say that they hate what I'm going to accuse them of, but I think a lot of it is virtue signaling. I think a lot of it is people who they probably even have like a very good moral reason for saying what they're saying. They think that it's what's best, but I think there's a motive for a lot of these people to be seen as somebody who's patriotic, who's America first and screw everyone else. And I am a very patriotic person. I love this country. I care about this country, and I care about it continuing to move forward, and maybe even in a more effective way moving forward. And I want to be a catalyst for good things that happen in this country. But I do not agree with the sentiment that right now in June of 2020 that it's realistic to only buy USA made products. And that's where the other people who are antagonistic of the whole thing come in, where they make all the comments about you're typing that probably from a device that's made in China, and wearing clothes made in China, and driving a Ford with parts made in China. And it's just in the way that our economy is structured right now, it's not feasible to expect to only buy USA made products if you're a normal functioning person in the United States. Would it be best case if we could get it there? Yes. And I think to a lot of those people's credit, that's kind of their point, is they want to buy everything possible that's USA made so that they can be part of the catalyst that gets more production to begin happening here. And I'm all for that type of attitude. If you look at my knife case right now, the one that's sitting in front of me, I actually have more knives than I think I ever have right now. So there's a lot of stuff that's not sitting in my case. I need to get a bigger one. But it's like 75% USA made to 25% foreign made right now. And even in the knives that aren't in this case, that are kind of overflow right now, still there's a lot of USA made and there's a few not USA made. If you go into like my junk drawer of like budget stuff, there's a lot of the foreign made knives that I don't really care about, but I also don't really give the time of day to those knives. So I give massive preference to buying USA made products when there's a couple criteria though. So I will buy the USA made product even if it's a little more expensive, as long as I deem it to be worth it. And part of that worth can be that it was manufactured here and that I'm supporting labor here and a business here, et cetera, et cetera. But I also want to be very clear that I don't believe that products are inherently better because they're manufactured here. We make some crappy stuff in the US, just like anywhere else. There is a variance in the level of quality in as long as there's a lot of something being made and there's options, there's going to be crappy options. There's usually going to be nice options. So is every knife made in the US going to be a Koenig Arius in terms of its level of quality? Not even close. The Koenig Arius is my favorite knife because of its level of quality, the attention to detail, and the design, and so many things about it. But there are other USA made knives that I have tried that I felt were A, poorly made, B, not very good designs, and C, were not even close to worth the money that are being asked them for the materials offered. So it's just not fair to put on other people that it's somehow morally their responsibility to buy. If you've got $50 for a knife and you want to pick the best option for yourself and get the most bang for your buck, if I was recommending a $50 knife to somebody right now who's just going to have one knife, unless they tell me specifically, and I want it to be made in the US, that's something important to me, the one I'd recommend based on quality, or even if I gave them a couple options to pick from so they could pick the design, however that conversation ended up really going, it probably wouldn't be a USA made option. And that's just the reality. It's easier at this point to get more bang for your buck if you're a budget buyer from other manufacturers that aren't here. So I think the cost and the value absolutely has to be a part of the conversation, because if your budget gives you the ability to spend twice as much as you should on something because it's built in the US, then you can make that decision whether that's worth it to you. But to other people who their budget doesn't work that way, I don't think it's fair to act like they're morally inferior because they're purchasing a product that wasn't made here, even though that product is objectively better for the money that they spent on it. And that rubs me the wrong way. So let's talk about, there's a really important part of this conversation that I want to talk about too, and that's options. So let's play a little thought experiment. We're going to pretend Jake from Bearded Gear is going to be a knife designer now. One day I would love to design knives. I think that would be cool. If I did, I probably wouldn't call it Bearded Gear. I don't know. We'll see whatever the future holds years from now. But if Bearded Gear was becoming a knife company and I've drawn up some knives. I've started to refine what I think I'd like my first folder to be, and then I'm getting serious about it. I create some CAD models so that I can make sure that it's functionally engineered properly, and then I maybe make a working model, like a 3D printed model of it or something. I create some kind of model, and I've got like a proof of concept, and I've got all of the renderings, and I have this knife design, right? And it's going to be a bearded gear knife. That's going to be the branding on it. And I want to have that knife made now. And I don't have CNC machines, which are very expensive, nor do I have the ability and the understanding of how to operate them. I don't have the technical abilities and tools to make a production run of knives. Even, let's say, my first production run of this theoretical knife, I want to make 100 of them. And that's a very small number of knives. I want to make 100. I couldn't do that personally. If I designed a knife right now, I would be incapable of making 100 of them to make a production run. That's the reality. And so for a lot of knife designers, if they're starting out, they're probably in a situation similar to that, right? So then what are my options? If I want to go in the US, answer me this: what are my options in the US to have that knife made? And tell me that they're competitive. And then I think your buying only USA made stuff argument holds more water. But I don't think it's competitive. I don't see the person in the US who I can go to who makes that make sense for me. I might be able to find one if I worked hard enough, but guess where I wouldn't have to spend that much time and energy and effort looking to find a good manufacturer. The ones that are already proven that a lot of other designers are using in China and Italy, etc. I could go to Riyadh, I could go to WE, I could go to Bestech, I could go to Artisan, I could go to Lion Steel, I could go to Fox, I could go to all of these people who make knives, right? And I could ask them or start the conversation with them about what it would take to have my knife become a reality and have it produced for me. And then guess what? If I picked most of those companies, when that knife came to me, when it was my knife that's ready and I've got it ready to ship out to my people who've hopefully pre-ordered one, or I'm going to start trying to sell them, or whatever that situation is, I've got my production knives there and ready, and they're good to start selling. Guess what's not going to be on the side of it? There's not going to be a spider or a butterfly or a ZT logo or a Kershaw logo or a Gerber logo or a SOG logo. The US knife companies right now who partner with designers to make knives that are then branded as their own knives, just stated as designed by such and such. Just this last, I think it's been almost a whole week now, I got the Spyderco Bombshell, designed by Birch Tree Blades. Guess what it's called? The Spyderco Bombshell. I love that. I think that makes sense. I would love one day, if I'm designing knives, to do a collaboration with Spyderco. From what I understand, though, that's not a very easy thing. Somebody who's unproven, who's just starting out in knife designing, probably isn't going to send Spyderco a sketch or even a working model or anything like that and have that conversation turn into a production knife from Spyderco. And I don't think if I was designing knives, also, that I'd want my first knife that I came out with to be one that's branded as somebody else's and just is stated as being designed by me. I'd want that to be my knife. I'd want it to have my name on it. I'd want it to be demonstrably from me. And I wouldn't want people to call it the Spyderco bearded gear knife. I'd want it to be Bearded Gear's knife. And I could build my reputation based on that. That's the way my brain works around the situation. So if I wanted to have ZT build it or Benchmade build it, I'm getting a ZT logo, I'm getting a butterfly, I'm getting a Spyderco here, or a spider here. That's a different situation than having a production knife built of your own that's being manufactured by someone else. So are there any options in the US for that? I'm sure there are people who are capable of it. I'm sure there are people who have tried it. And from what I understand, I can only remember the name of one manufacturer that's done some of this. I'm not even going to say the name because I don't have facts and figures on this, and a lot of it is just hearsay that I've picked up on here and there. But I believe there's one US company that has made some small production level knives of their own, but has also worked as a manufacturer for other people. And in a lot of those cases, I've heard a lot of complaints about timelines being way drawn out, about prices going up, and stuff like that. So the question is, if I was starting my own knife company, would I have any incentive? Would it make the most sense for my business to choose somebody in the US who either is going to be more expensive and possibly take longer, or could just be totally unproven. Like, there are a ton of machine shops here right in Southern California who are capable of producing knives, but do any of them do it actively? Do I know that they'd be able to actually create the end product that I really want it to be up to my expectations? They'd be a little bit unproven and untested. And I'd have to figure out whether they could economically make sense either. Would they be able to get it to the price I need it to be at to sell it competitively in the marketplace based on the materials that I'm using? Would they be able to get it to me on a timeline that's acceptable? Most of those things are already kind of figured out and are competitive at the overseas manufacturers who that's what they do. So would I love to see some of those options start to spring up here in the US? Absolutely. But the question is, how do we really make that happen? Because I don't necessarily think that just buying USA made knives only right now is going to make that happen. Because the ones that you're buying from are going to be ones who are only making their own knives, like Spyderco Benchmade and ZT, etc. Or like my Koenig, my favorite knife. Koenig isn't going to be able to manufacture my knife for me. They can't make enough to keep up with demand of the 2 models that they make right now. They're making as many as they can, from what I understand, and they always sell out immediately. There's always demand for them. So if I wanted them to make me a production run of knives, it would either be so expensive because I would have to justify to them with so much money that it would be worth their time to not be making their own knives, or they just wouldn't have the time and space to do it. Like, I don't see a way to make that work, right? So there needs to be either a manufacturer or manufacturers that see that there's an opportunity to work with US knife designers and become competitive at trying to earn their business of being the ones that do the production for them. Or there need to be knife designers and like small knife businesses who have the time and the capital to play that game and figure out who their new manufacturers could be. And I imagine that could be a very good thing. If a smallish knife company in the United States that has typically been using overseas production was able to source a machine shop that has CNC applications, whatever they need to produce their knives for them, and they were able to do it in a way that's still somewhat economical. Again, I'll pay a little more for a knife that's made in the US, especially at first, if it's a new project that they're trying to get going, because I want to catalyze that. But if they can get it to be competitive and to be done here, but someone has to start that. And so if I can help to make that happen, again, I would love to help make that happen. I think that would be a fantastic thing to accomplish in the knife community. If we could have options of manufacturing here. Like, when you think of manufacturing in China, at least for me, for years now in knife collecting, really quickly I learned who the players were over there, who make the good stuff that comes out of China. And people have been kind of added to that list lately as other people have been stepping up. But you either go to Riyadh, in my opinion, the best at Chinese manufacturing. You go to Wee, who's not far behind. Lately, Best Tech and Artisan are also kind of crushing it. And then in Italy, there's some players as well. But when I think of in the US, who would be the equivalent of any of those businesses, even if they're a little more expensive, or even if they're a lot more expensive, I can't think of any. I can think of a lot of US knife companies that are employing 1 to 5 people total who are making full customs or mid-techs where they're like having water jet cutting done and then they're finishing the knives, that kind of thing. There's Koenigs and there's Chris Reeves and there's Scorpion 6 and there's these people who are doing it all in the US, and I love that. I think that's fantastic. But it's a different game because they're not making production knives that are inexpensive enough to make it in the pockets of a large audience. They're just not. People who aren't deep in the knife hobby are not buying Koenigs. They don't even know Koenig exists. They're not even buying Chris Reeves. And Chris Reeve is probably the biggest example of that. I wouldn't try to recommend that someone spend that much money on a Chris Reeve anyways, but that's a different separate conversation. Sorry for everybody who just got offended by that. But the players in the US who are doing their own thing, who are making it all happen here, it's a lot more expensive. And there's a value proposition in that, because then you're supporting a very specific one small person business. But guess what? A lot of the designers and companies who are having their production done in China are multiple employees who are in the US, who have families here, who are good people, who are worth supporting. And their best option for their business is to have it manufactured in China right now, or Italy, or wherever else it may be. And so I just don't think it's worth it to hold it against those people and say, oh, Finch Knives, because you're brand new and just stepping onto the scene and trying to create a product that's inexpensive enough to get into people's pockets, is designed in a really cool way, is made to meet a high expectation for the money you're spending on it, with acceptable materials for the price range. I have to be mad at you because the way you're able to accomplish that is to have it made in China by Best Tech. I'm not mad at all about that. If I was Finch Knife Co., if I was one of those two guys who's running this company, who's trying to get it off the ground and make it a thing, make it a name in the knife scene, you better believe I'd make the same call. That's just the way I think about it right now. And I think if you look at it from a rational business standpoint, it's just unfair to have an expectation that these companies or people who are designing these knives would have any reason currently to bring it to the US. Other than now people are kind of starting to act like a mob and demand that it be made in the US. But if that's the case, a lot of these knife designers just aren't going to be able to find somebody who's able to do their production for a price that they can sell a knife at, and they're going to not be designing knives anymore. So we need to find a solution, I think, rather than just demanding that these people stop having knives made in China. And also, I've just had so many good experiences with knives made in China by US designers. Like my Sharp by Design Evo Typhoon that I had, which I regret letting go of to this day, but that was one of the nicest made knives I've ever owned. It's manufactured by Riat, had incredible carbon fiber inlays, really well done grinds. It was excellent materials, really great fit and finish. Aesthetically, it looked fantastic. I adored that knife. I like almost all of the designs from Sharp by Design. I think Brian is excellent at knife making. I've never even handled one of his customs though, because guess what? They cost like 4 times as much as that production version that I got. I'd be willing to bet if Sharp by Design had a production option that he could trust here in the US, that was even, instead of that knife being, I don't know, let's say it was $350. I'm sure I'm off, but if that knife was $350 to make, even if there was a US option that could make the same thing for $400, $425 to consumer, I'd be willing to bet he would do that. But I don't think that option exists. So in the meantime, somebody who can't afford the customs, who wants one of his design knives and is still supporting him in a way, I'm going to buy the production versions that I can afford and that I can justify buying. Like I'm not willing to spend $1,200 on a knife at this point. There's a lot of people who are. No judgment there. I love that happens. I love that there's depth to this hobby that goes way deeper than I am currently. I think that's a great thing. But I'm not comfortable spending that kind of money on a knife. So the options of knives that I can buy that are compelling to me and interesting to me are not always, as I've stated, most of my collection is USA made at this point. But there are options that are worth having to me that aren't made in the US. And I think that's totally fair to say. And if you draw a line in the sand and you won't buy them because they're made in China, more power to you. But I think at the end of the day, until the value is there, there's just not going to be a real shift. It's going to be a niche movement where certain people are screaming that we all need to be buying only USA made. But until the new guy in the knife hobby feels like he has options of knives to buy that are competitive in quality and in materials and in design and are built here, he's going to keep buying the Chinese made stuff. When I got into knife buying, guess what I bought a ton of right at the beginning? Chinese made stuff. Because it was where I felt I was getting the most for my money, which is how most people who start out in the hobby feel. And on top of that, I still don't even feel bad for a lot of those purchases or any of those purchases, because I was supporting a lot of the time US knife companies who are just having production done elsewhere. So I don't know. I really think the conversation needs to move towards, we need to foster competitive manufacturing here in the US as a solution to the problem, and not just low production number, expensive USA made knives. But there needs to be a place for knife designers to go who don't have the capability to make their own knives. And they need to be able to make a lot of them. Because even this is probably one of my favorite examples of a USA made knife company that's doing it spot on, amazing. TRM makes their own knives in-house here in the US using US materials. And they're a fantastic small business, tight-knit company of people that seem really cool and I want to support because I genuinely appreciate who they are in the community and how they do business. But guess what? They can't make enough knives either. If they could make 3 times as many knives as they do right now, they would sell all of them. So again, it's a company that's making knives, but if I wanted to have them make a knife for me, they wouldn't. Why would they say yes to that when they can't even make enough of their own design? There needs to be somebody who has the capability to do large runs of knives fast and consistently with good quality control and start nailing it. And then it'll make sense for these people to have their knives made here. So somebody either needs to figure out who that person is that hasn't been identified yet, who has that capability and is willing to enter the knife scene and manufacturing in the US, or somebody needs to realize that there's a knife market out there that no manufacturer in the US is tapping into, and they need to start coming for that business. Until that happens, I feel like we're at a stalemate here. I think that's really where it's kind of at. I don't feel like if I stopped buying any Chinese made knives, I'd be making any difference. In fact, I'd probably be only kind of harming some of the knife designers that I really like. And so that's where I stand on it. I would love, in an ideal situation, for all the knives that I want to buy to be made in the US. That would be fantastic to me. But we're not there yet. And right now there are a lot of good options of US made knives, but they're not always the best options. There are some that are. That's a hard line to draw, right? Like there are a ton of knives made in the US from ProTech and Microtech and ZT and Benchmade and Spyderco and Chris Reeve, if you're into that kind of thing, Koenig, TRM. Who else is in my knife case? I guess that's it in front of me. There's a lot of US options with a bunch of models, and there's something for everybody. But if you're a knife collector like I am, there's also a lot of really cool things that don't come from the US that I want to own, and I'm going to own them. And I'm not going to say, no, I'm not going to experience that really cool new knife that's coming out from a US designer who I like the work of because he had it manufactured by Riyadh. That's not going to be the way I do it. So I don't know how much sense all of this made, but hopefully that adds some clarity to where I stand on it. I will continue to buy USA made knives with preference to foreign made knives, but I won't get ripped off to buy USA made knives. As soon as I start feeling that it's a bad deal because it says made in the USA, I'm out. One thing I'll say about that too, I remember when I was a kid, I had a friend who had a bunch of like camping equipment that was all like military gear. It was like standard issue military stuff, and it was junk. But he always thought it was so cool because it was like military issued gear that he got at like the Army Navy surplus store or whatever. And in his mind, he always thought because this is what the military uses, it has to be the best because we have the best military in the world. They wouldn't give them terrible gear. newsflash, they absolutely do give them terrible gear in some circumstances. They're buying massive bulk quantities of stuff that they can get for fairly cheap to accomplish the task. I'm at a point in knife collecting where I'm looking for really nice things, like very fine things, and that can be for the amount of money I spend. I can look for really nice budget knives, but things need to be very competitive to get my attention these days, and for me to like them enough to spend my money on them, and then if I like them once I've spent my money on them, for me to keep them. Or if I don't like them, they're gone. And I'm real competitive about what sticks around in my knife collection. And I look for greatness. I'm not okay with okayness. So the idea that only USA made knives are what I can buy, I'm not behind it, because I'd be missing out on so much quality where I'm often getting so much more for my money in terms of fit and finish, action, material use. Like, you go down the line of what I look for in a knife, and oftentimes the best cases of fitting all of my preferences on a knife are knives that are made in a foreign factory and that I can get for cheaper than I could for a comparable one that's made here. So I'll spend a little more on US, but I'm not going to spend a ton more. That's not fair to expect the consumer to do. You need to be fair at creating a product that the consumer wants to buy. Just because it's country of origin is not something that makes me want to buy it. I still need an objectively good product. So I'll let all of that be that. I don't know how concise any of this will be. I don't even remember what point I started with in this video, or if I hit everything I was trying to hit, but I prefer USA made knives, and that's the real thing. And I'm going to buy more US made stuff than not US made stuff. I want to support US businesses and US makers and US designers. And it's very rare for me to buy a Chinese knife that was designed by some company internally in China, doesn't have a US entity behind it in some way. But even then, if there's a design that I like enough, that's a good knife, being a knife guy, I have no objection to buying it and trying it out. I just will. So I'll let that be what it may. Please feel free to go crazy, sound off in the comments, make this one of those places where everybody's yelling at each other about this topic, or don't. That would probably be better, because we'll let it be whatever it's gonna be. I look forward to seeing what comes of this. And this has been interesting. I don't know about this one being fun, but I think it was worth diving into a little bit. So I'll talk to you all soon. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you later.